You want to know how a quiet Tuesday morning can turn into a nightmare you replay for years? Picture this. My 8-year-old daughter Sophie out on the front lawn building a sandcastle with her therapy dog Justice Goldenfur, catching the sunlight, her little hands working with all the grit and focus that's defined her since she was born. You see, Sophie's got spina bifida, needs leg braces, sometimes her wheelchair. But honestly, if you ever met this kid, you'd see that her spirit isn't just unbreakable. It's contagious. That morning, I'm just watching her through the window, cup of coffee in hand, thinking about how far she's come. She's laughing. She's pushing herself. She's already a miracle. And you know what's funny? To everyone else on this street, I'm just David Chen, the widowed dad, the guy who works from home and adores his little girl. No one here knows that every day at 10:00 a.m., I put on the black robes and take my seat as the youngest Supreme Court justice in decades. They have no idea that just hours before I'd cast the swing vote on a case that would change the landscape for kids like Sophie all across the country. Ironic, right? You couldn't write it if you tried. But let me back up a sec, because this isn't just about a kid fighting to walk. This is about the monsters who walk among us too. In our quiet, picture-perfect suburb, there's Margaret Blackwell, HOA president, 6 years running. Think flawless blonde hairsuits that cost more than most folks' cars, and a smile so cold it might as well be carved in marble. She's rich, she's powerful, and she rules this place like some medieval queen, except her castle is a 6,000-square-foot McMansion, and her moat is an army of rules, fines, lawsuits, and a burning hatred for anyone she doesn't like, especially people like Sophie. First, it was anonymous complaints. Sophie's therapy gear was visual pollution. Then noise violations. Never mind that my girl's voice barely registers above a whisper. Margaret even tried to ban Justice, saying therapy dogs weren't allowed, conveniently ignoring federal law. The complaints got nastier. Property values, she'd say. Community standards. I tried to explain her condition, her progress, everything. But the more I tried, the more her eyes hardened. It was like watching someone switch off the last bit of humanity they had left. Turns out Margaret lost a lawsuit years back when a disabled kid got hurt at one of her rental properties. Cost her a fortune and her reputation, and ever since she's been nursing this sick grudge, convinced people like my daughter are bad for business, bad for quality neighborhoods. She ran the HOA like a dictatorship, drove out anyone who didn't fit her version of perfect. Folks whispered, but nobody pushed back until that Tuesday. Sophie's goal that day was to walk from our front door to the mailbox, maybe 50 feet. But for her, that's Everest. Justice trotting alongside, nudging her when she wobbled. The bond those two share. You've never seen anything like it. Neighbors used to come out just to watch her try. Mrs. Kim from next door with cookies, old Mr. Rodriguez timing her on his stopwatch, cheering every step. People cared, at least most of them. But not Margaret. Not that day. She pulls up in her black Mercedes, heels clacking, laser-focused on Sophie. "What do you think you're doing?" she barks. Sophie freezes. Justice steps between them, his whole body tense, ready to defend. Margaret's voice, so full of contempt it's almost surreal, cuts through the morning air, calling my kid a medical circus, saying she's destroying property values, making a spectacle. I swear, hearing her talk to my little girl like that, like she's some kind of disease, something in me snapped. I rush out trying to keep my cool, channel that calm I've used to quiet entire courtrooms. "Mrs. Blackwell, there's no need for this. Sophie's just doing her therapy." But she's past reason, ranting about lawsuits, risks her true colors, bleeding through every word. And that's when it all spirals. Margaret grabs Sophie's arm, leaves red marks on her skin, yanks her away from Justice, and drags her toward the construction site where workers left a hole for a new mailbox post. Sophie's screaming Justice is barking. Neighbors are coming out, phones in hand, eyes wide frozen in disbelief. Margaret, so far gone in her hatred, shoves Sophie into that hole 3 feet deep, dirt-stained cold, grabs a shovel and starts piling earth onto my terrified daughter. Sophie's voice shaking, desperate, "Daddy, help me." I can't breathe. Justice is digging his paws, bleeding. Me, I'm running like my life depends on it because it does. You ever see red? I tackled Margaret. Hard, knocked the shovel. Flying started digging Sophie out with my bare hands. Margaret's shrieking, threatening to call the cops on me, and I can't hold it in anymore. Do you know who I am? I roar, yanking my Supreme Court badge from my jacket, showing it right in her stunned face. You just tried to murder a federal dependent, assaulted a disabled minor, and committed federal hate crimes on camera with a dozen witnesses. Her face turns sheet white, the bravado drains away, and for the first time she looks small, just another bully out of her depth. Sirens wail, cops and federal agents swarm in. I explain what happened in legal terms so clear you couldn't slip a piece of paper between the facts. Margaret tries to talk her way out, but nobody's buying it. The officers slap the cuffs on her, and for the first time in years, the neighborhood breathes easy. The crowd, the footage, the headlines, it all explodes in hours. HOA, Karen attacks Supreme Court Justice's disabled daughter, you name it. Margaret's name is mud. Her history of harassment pours out, and suddenly all those folks who used to cower step up and speak out. The prosecutors go after her with everything: attempted murder, aggravated assault, hate crimes, violations of the ADA. It's a slam dunk. Sophie, my brave girl, testifies via video comm, as you please, telling the jury. She said, "Kids like me don't belong, but my daddy says everyone belongs somewhere." There's not a dry eye in the house. Jury comes back guilty on all counts. Margaret gets 5 years, no parole, federal time. But you want the real twist? Sophie asks to address Margaret before sentencing. Stands on a little stool, braces shining, says, "I forgive you because my daddy taught me that forgiveness makes you stronger than hate." I swear you could have heard a pin drop. Margaret breaks down sobbing, and for the first time I actually believe she's sorry. The civil suit that follows, $32 million. We set up a foundation therapy, dogs, wheelchair support for kids across the country. Margaret's mansion gets sold. The HOA is dissolved, replaced by a group that values inclusion and kindness. The whole community changes. Property values go up. More families move in, and that ugly construction site turns into a memorial garden. Sophie plants herself flowers blooming where hatred tried to kill her hope. Sophie becomes a speaker, schools, conferences, even the United Nations. Inspires a new generation of kids, teaches communities how to embrace differences. Our story shapes landmark disability rights law cited in courtrooms nationwide. And Margaret. She serves her sentence, then shows up at Sophie's 12th birthday party. Broken, remorseful, determined to make it right. She starts a nonprofit for disability legal aid, spends the rest of her life making amends. Today, Sophie's 16, prepping for college, Justice retired but never leaving her side. The garden blooms every year, a living reminder that beauty grows from the worst kind of pain. When people ask me what I learned, I tell them justice isn't just about punishment, it's about what you do next. Margaret learned the law is merciless when you attack the innocent. Sophie taught us grace can change even the hardest heart. The case we set in motion rewrote the rules for millions of kids who'll never know her name, but will always walk a little freer because she refused to give up. So what do you think? Does justice mean locking people away or giving them a shot at redemption? Would you have forgiven someone like Margaret? Share your thoughts below. This is the kind of story that's bigger than just us. This is what community courage and real justice look like.